These are the top 7 most extreme reported cases of kidnappings from around the world. Steven Stainer. 7-year-old Californian Steven Stainer was on his way home from school when a man claiming to be a church representative asked the young boy to take him to his home so he could speak with his mom. While the two walked towards Stainer's house, Kenneth Parnell drove up beside them and convinced Stainer to climb into the car with him. Parnell and the false church rep, Irvin Murphy, were accomplices. Parnell took Stainer to his cabin and molested him. When the boy asked to be returned to his home, his captor lied to him and claimed to have received legal custody of him since his parents no longer wanted him. Parnell gave Stainer a new name, Dennis Gregory Parnell, and enrolled him in school. As Stainer began to enter puberty, Parnell decided that he needed a younger victim and had an accomplice kidnap a 5-year-old boy named Timothy White in February of 1980. Stainer decided that he would try to take the boy back home and then escape himself. While trying to find White's home, the boys were taken into custody by Ukiah police and Stainer revealed their true identities. The boys were promptly reunited with their families. Readjusting to family life proved difficult for Stainer, who had been used to smoking and drinking and doing as he pleased while living with Parnell. Eventually, he was kicked out of his home. In 1985, he married Jody Edmondson and they had 2 children. 4 years later, Stainer died in a motorcycle accident. In 1981, Parnell was convicted of kidnapping in 2 separate trials and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. He was paroled after just 5 years. Fusako Sano. Fusako Sano was kidnapped at the age of 9 on November 13, 1990, after watching a local school baseball game in Sanjo, Japan. Her captor, Noujulu Sato, was a 28-year-old man with mental illness who was living with his mother. After abducting the young girl, he kept her confined to the upstairs floor of his apartment, where he tied her up and shocked her with a stun gun if she refused to tape the horse races on TV for him. According to Sano, she never tried to escape because she was too afraid and had no energy. In January of 2000, police came to the home after having received several phone calls from Sato's mother, who accused him of violence and strange behavior. Sano identified herself to the police and was freed. She reportedly suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and jaundice. Unlike many of the victims on this list, Sano and her family refused to speak publicly about the ordeal. Sato was arrested on February 11, 2000, and was eventually sentenced to 14 years in prison. Natasha Kampusch. Before her kidnapping became publicly known, 10-year-old Austrian native Natasha Kampusch was last seen on the morning of March 2, 1998, when she left the house to go to school. A child witness suggested that Kampusch had been abducted by 2 men in a white minibus, but an extensive police search of 776 minivans throughout Vienna, Austria and its neighboring districts proved futile. Wolfgang Prilepil held Kampusch captive in a windowless and soundproof cellar beneath his garage. For 6 months, she was not allowed to leave that confined space, but eventually, Prilepil allowed her to spend some time with him upstairs in his home. When she made 18, she was allowed to go out with Prilepil and he treated her to a ski trip. Still, those privileges hardly made up for the repeated abuse, starvation, and rape that Kampusch suffered at her captor's hands. In August of 2006, while Kampusch was cleaning and vacuuming Prilepil's car, he received a phone call and decided to take it elsewhere due to the noise of the vacuum. Kampusch took the opportunity to run away and alerted a neighbor, who then called the police. Once Prilepil caught wind of his imminent arrest, he committed suicide by jumping in front of a train. Tanya Nicole Koch. At the time of her kidnapping, Koch was a middle school student living in Pennsylvania. She befriended Thomas Hose, a security guard at the school, and eventually they formed an intimate relationship. In 1996, Hose convinced Koch to run away from her family so that they could live together, and so her confinement began. Koch was kept confined to a second-story bedroom where she was not allowed to leave for 4 years. Hose, who lived with his parents and his son, eventually decided to introduce her as his girlfriend, Nikki Allen, and allow her to leave the house occasionally. After 6 more years, Koch revealed her true identity to a local grocery store owner who then informed the police. Koch was reunited with her family, but her case has been surrounded by controversy over the years. Hose claimed that she moved in with him at her own will, and that she did so in order to escape her abusive parents. Koch's parents, on the other hand, deny having ever abused their child and described her as a violent, completely uncontrollable, and compulsive liar. Hose was eventually charged with statutory rape and sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison. J.C. Lee Duggard. On June 10, 1991, J.C. Duggard was walking from home to a school bus stop when Philip Garrido drove up, shocked her with a stun gun, and snatched the 11-year-old girl up into his car. Despite there having been eyewitnesses and an immediate police alert, more than 18 years would pass before Duggard's parents saw her again. While in captivity at Philip Garrido's Contra Costa County home, Duggard was raped repeatedly by Garrido and often left in handcuffs. For months, Garrido was her only human contact until he introduced her to his wife and partner in crime, Nancy. The Garridos confined Duggard to their backyard and would force her to watch pornography and listen for the voices in Philip Garrido's head. About 3 years later, Duggard became pregnant, and at age 16, she gave birth to her second daughter. In 2009, Garrido made a visit to the UC Berkeley Police Office to speak about his God's Desire program. He was accompanied by both of Duggard's daughters, who were observed by the Special Events Coordinator to be erratic, sullen, and submissive. A subsequent background check spurred an investigation that led to Garrido showing up at the parole office with his wife, Duggard, and her 2 children. At first, Duggard denied her identity and claimed to be a battered wife on the run. Eventually, though, she told the truth about her identity, and both Philip and Nancy Garrido were arrested. Duggard was reunited with her mother shortly thereafter. Philip Garrido was sentenced to 431 years in prison, while Nancy received 36 years to life. Carlina White. At the age of 23, Nedra Nance made a startling discovery that would change her life forever. The woman she had called Mom all her life, Ann Petway, was in fact her kidnapper. At just 19 days old, White was taken to the Harlem Hospital Center in New York City by her biological parents Joy White and Carl Tyson due to high fever. A woman dressed as a nurse, later identified as Petway, abducted the infant around 3:30 on the morning of August 4th, 1987. White's parents searched incessantly for her while Petway enrolled her in school in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It wasn't until White reached her teen years that she began to suspect that something was awry. The mother and daughter looked nothing alike, and when White asked for her social security card and birth certificate, Petway constantly made excuses for why she did not have them. White decided to try searching for herself on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website and was able to identify her picture using both her own baby photos and those of her daughter. She contacted the agency and they connected her with her birth parents. A DNA test confirmed that she was indeed the daughter that they had lost so many years ago. The FBI began a search for Petway, who eventually turned herself in and confessed to the crime. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The Ariel Castro Kidnappings. Ariel Castro was a Cleveland bus driver who was convicted of kidnapping 3 young women for almost 11 years. These women were Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Georgina de Jesus. Knight was just 21 years old at the age of her abduction. Police suspected that she had voluntarily run away. Berry was just shy of 17 when she was abducted. Georgina was the youngest of the group, and she was just 14 at the time of her abduction. All three women were held captive in upstairs bedrooms where they were given one meal a day and forced to relieve themselves in plastic toilets and shower no more than twice a week. Castro repeatedly raped the girls and forced Knight to have miscarriages several times by beating and starving her. Berry, however, gave birth to Castro's child in 2006. It was reported that Castro, in an effort to keep up his guise as an upstanding citizen, attended vigils and even participated in a search party for one of the girls. On May 6, 2013, Berry was able to contact neighbors and escape with her then 6-year-old daughter. This led to the rescue of Knight and De Jesus and the subsequent arrest of Castro. Castro was sentenced to life in prison plus 1,000 years. 1 month into his sentence, however, Castro committed suicide by hanging himself in his prison cell.